Hi everyone, Magnus here, back again with some more live explained rapid chess. This time I'm going for the Reti, playing a 1400 from Singapore, I believe, and I've been showing this earlier on in a video called The Only Opening That You'll Ever Need for White. And the idea behind the Reti is that you develop your pieces like this, and okay, this is a really weird way to play. Already I'm looking at like h4, h5. So I think also they are threatening to go pawn to e5 with this knight on g6, which is a classic idea that the Reti's meant to stop, with this knight on f3 stopping this pawn. So I'm thinking that after h4, if they push e5, so h4, e5, h5, e4, the question is captures, captures, I take on f7, and then they take, and then I take. So I think that h4 is a nice way to sort of just ask black, what exactly are you doing with that knight there? So the knight's going to have to go all the way back to the f8 square, and I could even drive the pawn down to h6, looking to potentially capture here, and if they take, then their structure is going to get all messed up. So it does look a little bit weird what I've just done, pushing this h pawn up, but it was only because I was provoked by the knight getting in to g6. And as you can see, their knight is now completely dead over there on the f8 square, preventing them from castling. It can't develop, so they're going to have to move their d pawn and get their knight out at some point. So this just looks really bad for my opponent. I'm just going to keep playing in the center, trying to take space with moves like c4. c4, d4 is what I've always shown in these Reti games. You can get really nice positions. And okay, so potentially d5 could be a move. I'm just going to keep developing my pieces for now, try and get my knight out. And okay, now I'm thinking d5 is definitely a move, because after d5 I can take back with my knight, and if I can win that dark squared bishop, these dark squares are going to be super weak for my opponent, and this could be a pretty quick game if they lose that bishop. Okay, so instead they jump their knight in. I'm going to capture that, opening up my bishop here. Okay. And I don't really want to take, because that would activate their knight. I really want to keep this pawn as a clamp down on their position. So yeah. So I'm putting into play something like b6, b3, bishop b2, trying to get my bishop onto the long diagonal, then I can move my knight out of the way somewhere. That looks pretty good. And then I can start to harass this pawn. So I don't really have to be in a rush to castle. Generally, castling is a good idea, but it doesn't have to be rushed too quickly. Okay. So they are trying to chip away at my pawn. So potentially...
I don't know that one.
Excuse me? So potentially after bishop to b2, they could take here, and then I can take back. And if they take, then I can always capture here, and that puts some pressure on their bishop. But then they might move their bishop to g5, and that's not so good. At the same time, I can also capture here, and this would force a damaging of their pawn structure. If their bishop is to take, I can always consider taking. And after they recapture, I can play something simple, like bishop to b2. And if they want to trade queens with me, it gets my rook to the open file, and I can always quickly get my knight into the game, which will put some pressure on this pawn here with my bishop. So just keeping it simple, not doing anything too crazy. And if I can win this pawn, I'll be up a pawn, better structure, they've got split pawns. So as you can see, I have My pawns are much more compact. They're all together like this. This guy, you could even consider him to be part of this pawn island, even though it's a little bit isolated. It's still pretty good. Okay, mini tactic here. Captures. I can, in fact, capture this guy. If you deliver a check, I can always move my king. This check here is not harmful. I can move the king again, and I should get away with it. So I'm going to capture this pawn. And if you deliver a check here, I can retreat my bishop, attacking the queen, and getting the bishop out of harm's way from the queen's check. So that's an important thing to see. But other than that, there's not too much to look at. Yeah, so if their queen checks me, my bishop goes back. Their queen is now hanging. Their knight is under fire from my two pieces. So their queen might have to go somewhere like f5, on which I could play queen to d4, applying more pressure down the pin. So they do decide to give up their rook in the corner. I'm going to take that rook, grabbing material, and my king will probably end up going for a run here, if that were to happen. So my bishop will always have this pawn to support it, so even if it gets trapped, it doesn't really matter. I think I'm probably just going to castle now. Now my rooks can easily get into the game. Let's put the bishop on the defended square, defended by the pawn. There's no way that you can eliminate these two. Bishop guards the pawn, pawn guards the bishop. If you're going to take one, I'm going to take with the other. So I should just be up a fairly clean rook here. Okay. Queen d3 makes a lot of sense to me. They were threatening to take this pawn, but now the queen guards the pawn. Because of the pin they were looking to take there, but now the queen protects the pawn and attacks the knight, and I'm just looking to develop my rooks down the center line here. So I can get my rook into the game now very nicely. This check's not a big deal. I can just move the king up. And yeah, I probably expect them to do something like developing a rook, but then I can play queen c3 and start to harass this position. Okay, I'm not exactly sure. Maybe they want their queen here. I have also just noticed that their knight, might have been able to do this the turn before, but their knight was running. Actually, no, I couldn't because the pawn wasn't on c5. But now that the pawn's on c5, oh, that was a misclick. I was trying to point out that I could play f4, and on f4, knight h3, king g2, their knights would have been trapped, as it would have not been able to jump anywhere back here, and it also didn't have any retreat square initially. But unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to demonstrate that. Doesn't really matter, the position's still winning. I'm still threatening this pawn to f4 move, just getting my queen out of danger here, offering some rook exchanges. And f4 is still on the cards, of course. A little bit annoying that I wasn't able to execute it and drop the pawn, but this kind of stuff happens in online chess. But yeah, as I was saying, f4, knight h3, king g2. The knight cannot get anywhere into the position, it cannot go back. And on f4, these two squares are covered. The knight can't go back because there are pieces on all of the retreat squares, and the h3 square is dangerous. So they do make way for their knight to escape. Well done to my opponent. That was a good idea. I'm going to play this move because now if they were to take me, this pawn would cover up e6 and also would get me a passed pawn which can start to push. And other than that, I'm going to try and stack my rooks and get them involved in the game. This pawn on f3 is not terrible. At least it is making way. If my king wants to go to g2, it'll be a little bit safer. Okay. So maybe they're looking to try and bring their queen into the game now with something like queen h3. I can always drop back my queen and start to protect. Also, they will have to immediately deal with this because queen to h3 is not a draw if they were to start taking here. So if queen to h3 were to be played, I can simply take, and if they were to capture here, I can just move my king over, and after some more checks, I'll go king e1, and there'll be no more checks, and my king would run away. So, okay. Now I'm looking, maybe there are some sacrifices to try and open up my opponent's position. I can also play a move like g4, which prevents this infiltration, and the only way for them to start attacking back against me would create some serious weakness with all of these pieces looking at that position. So I guess they're going to remaneuver the knight to f4. So I'm going to put my king on f2 this time, just so that, oh no, I can't put it on f2, sorry. I guess I'll put it on f1 then. Or maybe I'll just go to h1. No, probably, actually I'll go to h2. Yeah, I don't see that bishop getting this diagonal anytime soon. My knights have, my rooks have great control over that. So probably they're going to go like knight f4, and I'll just put my queen here. And actually no, they're attacking my rook, sorry. So probably just rook d7, and I should try and stack up my rooks on on the d file. If I can double up on the 7th rank like this, just bring this rook in, the position should eventually start to collapse. Now, of course, it would have been much easier if I could have just played f4 and won the knight, but you can't have it all. Okay, I do think I'm probably in time with rook d7 just to start destroying the black position. You don't have time to deal with any of this. And also now this e-pawn is falling apart. I have got this funny move, but it doesn't work. So probably I'll just capture here. And if they trade queens, they can take my pawn here, but then I put another attacker, and there's no way to get out of the pin. So it looks like the position has now completely collapsed. Not a whole lot to do. Maybe, I mean, like the knight's hanging, so they can't even take this because I'll just grab the knight. So really, not a whole lot for them to do. Yeah, I'm just taking the knight with check. King's gonna have to go back. I might be able to sack here because if the rook were to take, then this is a checkmate. So that's a pretty nasty move. Rook takes e7, a deflection sacrifice, taking their rook from the e8 square to the e7 square, from which my bishop, which has been trapped for so long, is now providing the checkmate on f8. So the game is effectively over. Probably time to resign for my opponent. But they played well. Weird opening. Very strange opening. Like this whole bring the knight out to g6 in 2 moves when you could just put it on the much better square and more active square. I don't really know what that was. But let's take a quick look at the analysis, see how it went. I imagine, I don't really know. Okay, so 81 accuracy for me, 66 for them. We were never really in trouble, but there was one mistake. One big mistake anyway. So yeah, it's a bit weird, but like h4 is generally a good idea when these knights make their way out to g6, because you can just start pushing the pawn down the board. And if they want to develop, often their knight gets kicked to a very unpleasant square. And I just pushed the pawn all the way down. And yeah, I probably should have played e4 as well, actually, trying to get an e5. But I really wanted to just play in the traditional way, where you put these 2 pawns forward. But then again, black wasn't playing a traditional way, so I probably didn't have to do that. Tried to break open the center, and apparently b3 is a little bit slow, and I should just castle. Probably bring my queen to b6 or something, and then try and get a rook to the d file, then open things up. That would have made a lot more sense. I should have done that. And okay, yeah, that's pretty. I guess d6. What? Bishop f6, knight e4. I don't really know. Yeah, okay, fine. And then I'm getting the dark squared bishop, and you know, black's just really cramped here with these pieces. So I probably should have gone for that. So knight e4 is good. This is good. And wow, apparently this is bad. This is not good. I should trade queens first. Because, you know, I was pointing out during the game that queen a5 can be met with bishop c3. And queen f5 can be met. I was going to say like queen d4. Oh. Well, wait, but surely there's this. There is this. Okay, but Engine's saying there's actually a better continuation with knight to d6. Ah, that's nasty. And basically black is completely trapped. This c6 pawn's hanging, and then a rook's coming to the d file, and black's getting mated. This knight can't move. Basically, just black position's terrible. But anyway, they didn't go for any of that. They took here. I grabbed the rook. I didn't think initially queen f5 was a big deal. I was thinking just king f1. Oh, but queen f5, and then all of a sudden there's a double threat. That's pretty bad. Rook to h2 would be the only move. And then knight g3, king g1. Or knight e4. I don't know. Yeah, things would have just got really unclear. Maybe I have to go like queen f1, queen g2. Which that looks really ugly, actually. Even though I am still up material, as you can see, I'm +2. Engine says black's better because black's got all of this attacking possibility, and my pieces are just a little bit cramped and all over the place, so that wouldn't have been good. Instead, they played f6. They tried to trap my bishop, my castle, out of trouble. Saved the bishop, kicked their knight, and here, as you can see, f4 would have been pretty much an instant win because their knight is simply trapped. But unfortunately, I slipped and I played f3. They brought a rook, put my queen on e3. Tried to centralize, stacked up. And this is really how you play with the two rooks. When you're up, you just want to get your rooks to their most active position, in this case the 7th rank, and just start battering down on the king. So then their position just started to collapse here as soon as they played f5. And a nice little rook sack at the end for checkmate. So if you guys did enjoy this video and find it potentially useful, please do consider liking and subscribing, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.